A few days ago, a question came that whether astrology is connected with the law of attraction. In this podcast, I have shared many details and especially on how the law of attraction itself is a myth. So tune in and listen and see if you can understand the language that I speak. Firstly, there is no such thing as a law of attraction. But there is attraction. There is no law, absolutely no law. But yes, there is attraction. And this attraction is based on the qualities, guna, that you have developed within you. By and by, these qualities leads to certain karma and then follows the cycle of karmic connections. And this is deep, this is significant, and I appreciate the question. Law of attraction is a man-made philosophy, and philosophies have nothing to do with the truth. Always remember, only a blind man can easily define what light is. When you do not know, you are bold. Ignorance is always bold. Knowledge hesitates. And the more you know, the more you feel that the ground underneath is dissolving. The more you know, the more you feel how ignorant you are. Philosopher is like a blind man, and a blind man can be bold enough to claim how the light is, though he has never ever experienced the light, the divine, in the true sense. Whereas a spiritualist has. He has experienced, and so whatever he shares is coming through his own experiences and not belief, not assumptions, and not calculations. Therefore, I always say that either you are a philosopher or you are a spiritual person. You cannot be both. Either you are blind or either you have the eyes to see. Either you are on the side of logic and logic and logic, and abundance of intellectualism, or you are on the side of love and love and love, and abundance of intelligence. Philosophy has nothing but intellectualism. It is all head, all calculations, nothing real. Calculations and logic can take you from A to Z, but beyond that, it cannot. Then you start suffocating. And that is what is happening. All these intellectuals and philosophers continue to go round and round and round just to realize at the end that they have gone nowhere. Always remember, intellectuality is mechanical. The intellect is absolutely bankrupt. It has nothing of its own, all is borrowed. And that's the difference between intelligence and intellect. Intelligence has an eyesight of its own, a capacity to see into things, into problems. Intelligence is your born quality. A philosopher is an intellect. A spiritualist is a man of intelligence. The mind gives birth to intellect. In fact, the mind loves intellect. Mind is intellectual, which is indeed a very poor substitute for intelligence. Such a mind then comes up with such fancy ideas of law of attraction. Firstly, who makes the law? And this is a deep question. Because if you are saying, or the whole human world is using the word law, then there has to be someone out there who governs the law. But in reality, there is nobody out there who is sitting or who is appointed to govern the law. So it all happens on its own. There is no law, there is no judge, there is nobody, no person. It simply happens on its own, and it happens at its own pace. It happens through its own process. And therefore people get lost when they think positive, and yet positive is not what they get in return. Because there is no such law. The good that you do may not be returned to you back. And one who indeed is truly focused on doing good is least interested to expect anything in return. He is simply happy to help. Look at me. Maybe I may have done so far 200 plus videos, but not in a single video I have asked anybody to subscribe to my channel, because I am least interested. I don't expect anybody. Whosoever can understand my language will be drawn, will be attracted naturally. So there is no law as such. Everything happens naturally. So this theory of think positive so that you get positive is purely the philosophy of the mind. And the mind is cunning. The mind knows how to manipulate words and its meanings to its own self-interest. The mind interferes immediately whenever the heart feels love. The mind immediately interferes. Imagine a moment when you are walking on the street and you come in an eye contact with a totally unknown woman, and suddenly you fell in love. But immediately the mind pops up. It starts creating 100 doubts, and that is how we go on killing love, by entertaining our mind. The law of attraction is the logic of the mind, that positive or negative thoughts bring positive or negative experiences into a person's life. And logic has absolutely nothing to do with the truth. There was one young man who lived in the US, and he met an old lady. The old lady belonged to a positivist group that was very prominent 50 years ago in the US. They called themselves the Christian Scientists. They believe there is no negative in this world. Everything is divine. There is nothing wrong. Everything is right. They forgot completely that if there is nothing wrong, how are you going to define the right? If there is nothing negative, how are you going to define the positive? If there is no darkness, how are you going to define the light? But certain people found it to be a very interesting philosophy. The old woman asked the young man, I haven't seen your father coming to our weekly meetings. Where is he? Why he is not coming? The young man said, he is very sick. The old woman said, all nonsense. He has forgotten our philosophy. Sickness is your imagination. Just go home and tell him, sickness is your imagination. There is no sickness, no death. Nothing wrong in the world. It is God who created the world. How can there be wrong? The young man said, I will convey your message. 3 weeks passed, and the old man did not turn up. Again the woman encountered the young man and asked him, Did you convey my message? He said, I did. The old woman said, But he has not turned up to the meeting. The young man said, I am sorry to tell you that now he imagines he is dead. Truth cannot be conveyed to such a woman. Such kind of people who simply cannot accept, cannot face the truth that death exists, that the old man has died. These kind of people who keep on saying, be positive, are in the true sense denying to see through the real that exists in and around us, and that is the greatest irony of this human world. Always remember, the philosophy of positive thinking means being untruthful. It means being dishonest. It means seeing a certain thing and yet denying what you have seen. It means deceiving yourself and others. What is. If a man is doing wrong, you cannot go on saying to yourself, be positive. You have to face the truth and deal with it. Always remember, and I say it specifically to my close followers, that there is attraction, but there is no law as such. Because law means conditions, law means a predefined theory, a concept, law means regulations, law means all that, which means everything but freedom. And the whole universe thrives on freedom. Unless there is freedom, there cannot be anything possible under this sun. Anything that is beautiful, anything that is lovable, anything that is meaningful. So there is absolutely no law, because the moment you say it is a law, you are giving a guarantee, and life has no guarantee. And so I tell you all that do good, but whenever you do good, do not expect good in return. This very idea of expectation brings a certain selfishness to your being, and then the essence of all that you do good is lost, is simply lost. The law of attraction is for those mind and those logical fellows and those intellectual folks who are doing good with an expectation of getting good back. These are deals, and deals are made in the market, my fellows, not in God's kingdom. Deals are of the mind, and so men and women who have been following their mind have come up with these kind of fancy terms called law of attraction. Buddha will not understand what this law of attraction is, because he is so innocent, he is so selfless that he just is not bothered of what comes out of his positive actions. He just does good and moves on. And so I love Buddha, the meditative beings love Buddha, and every man and every woman who is following the heart and not the mind loves Buddha, because Buddha does good out of love and not out of logic. Jesus heals a blind man, gives him eyes, a new sight. I am certain he must not have thought of this law of attraction when he would have healed a passing blind man. Jesus is walking on the road, and suddenly a blind man comes to know that Jesus is walking towards him. Somebody says, Jesus is coming, Jesus is coming, and he listens to those words and he waits. And as Jesus comes closer, he drops himself on Jesus' feet and he starts crying and he says, Jesus, Jesus, I pray to you, please help me to get my eyes back. And Jesus is such a beautiful person, such a compassionate master, that he gets down on his knees, touches the blind man's eyes, and the blind man starts seeing. At first, a very blurred vision, he could see a young face with some beard, with glowing eyes, eyes that showered so much of love. And the first words that he says is that, I see you, Jesus, I see you. And he falls at the master's feet. But Jesus raises him up and gives him a hug, and the man could not stop crying. He was touched, he was blessed, he was no more the same. Everything around him was the same, but he was no more the same. The blind man, who is now no more a blind man, gets up and gives a hug to Jesus, and Jesus smiles. The master is always happy to see the sick heal. The master, the very coming of the master is to heal the sick. Yes, my fellows, the master indeed is for the sick. In the Bible, it is mentioned that it is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. And so Jesus says, I have not come to call the righteous, but the sinners to repentance. Jesus heals the blind man, gives him eyes to see, gives him a hug, and then moves on, as if nothing special has happened. And this is how the real master is. They never take the credit to themselves. They give it all to the Almighty God. They simply state that God is the Creator and I am His humble servant. And God's servant has no expectations. A God's servant has no agenda. He is therefore free to live his life in his own bliss, in his own peace. Radhanath Swami of ISKCON says, the goal of Krishna consciousness is not to be spiritually advanced, it is to be servant of Krishna. So beautiful and so deep. The West calls it God consciousness. In India, we call it Krishna consciousness. The Far East may call it Buddha consciousness. Name changes, what remains is consciousness. You may give it any name. What needs to be remembered is that God is the ultimate fragrance of your consciousness. And to serve God selflessly is the most beautiful blossoming that can happen to you, to all those who are listening to this podcast. But who wants to listen? People are running and running and running to advance themselves spiritually, while the real gem of a person is least interested in any advancement. He or she is simply devoted to serve the Lord by serving those in need. The Divine Master, Avatar Meher Baba, says, no amount of prayer or meditation can do what helping others can do. When you help without any agenda, without any self-interest, without any selfish motive, you are creating a much better ground for meditation to blossom, to flower. So you see, first comes your karma. Do good without thinking about any such logical fancies such as the law of attraction, and then you will truly arrive. You will find a way back home. Whenever you do anything good out of heart, spontaneously, it is called the act of random kindness. It comes spontaneously. There is absolutely no space to even think about such intellectual fancies. When you do good, you do it out of love and not out of expectation. And then it is the real good karma, and this karma then follows you. Yes, it is the karma that follows you. Just the way a calf finds his or her mother, even though she is standing with thousands of other cows, similarly, your karma finds you among thousands of people. You just cannot escape your karma. That is why I always insist, don't hurt others by commenting negatively. Because you may think that you have hurt somebody by commenting negatively, but that will impact your growth. Because by one negative comment, you yourself are creating negative circles of karma for yourself. So no matter wherever you go, your karma follows you. What you have done follows you. The astrologers call it Ketu. The saints call it karma. Whatever you have done is your Ketu. Mohan asked, then who is Rahu? What is Rahu? I smiled and said, for that you have to read my book, How to Overcome Rahu. But since that will take some time for you, let me tell you what is Rahu. Rahu is your desire, which compels you to take birth again and again and again until you self-realize the futility of the base desires and start raising the quality of your desires. Attractions to a certain woman, a certain man, similarly takes place based on the past karmic connections or past karmic dues. And astrology simply signifies these karmic attractions, so the question of coexisting does not arise. They are not two entities, they are not separate entities, they are the two sides of the same coin called life. Attractions happen based on what you are within. Always remember, attraction to a wrong woman or attraction to a wrong man is basically your own shortcoming. It is a sign that your quality, guna, is taking a setback. Your standard is falling, and then everything starts falling. You jump in the bed, and then misery makes sure that one day the same bed becomes your deathbed. Always remember, just remember that you are your hell and you are your heaven too. It all begins with you. If you want to have a good friend, first you should ensure that you are filled with all the goodness that you expect from others. If you want to have a great friend, then first you should become great. If you are looking for a good life partner, then first you should have all the qualities of a good life partner. But people are shallow. They would expect others to be something that they themselves are not. Then how will the marriage work? Then how will the relationship work? Then how will the friendship work? But people say something, they feel something, and they do something else. There is absolutely no sync in what you feel, what you say, and what you do. And hence, miseries are more and happiness is less. Problems are more and peace is less. Law of attraction is a beautiful philosophy of the cunning mind. And all that feeds the mind sells like a hot cake. all that appeals to the mind sells faster. But I am not here to make your mind happy. I am here to help you all realize the truth, and the truth is beyond mind. The truth can only be found in the state of no mind. Meditation is no mind. Truth is already there, but you can experience it only when you keep the mind aside. And in this yuga, it is going to be more and more difficult because the mind has become the master. The majority of people is ruled by the mind, and so you see more miseries, more madness, more murders, more attacks, more clinging, more attachments, and more sufferings. Because the majority of people has become the mind. Majority of them have become the mind, and so the truth disturbs the majority. The truth is collapsed. The truth is condemned fiercely. You have to tame the monkey mind. You have to take control of your mind. Else, this mind will cause many miseries in your life. And I say to you all, wake up before it is too late. Get back to your roots. Get back to where you had started. And the way to do so is by focusing within. So come you all. The mind will continue to raise many questions, but always remember, the answer comes, the real answer, the real direction comes only from your heart. And so meditate by focusing on your heart. Your heart is beautiful. What comes between you and your heart is the monkey mind. Your heart knows the way. Listen to the voice of your heart and jump. Jump into the unknown. Jump into yourself and take a deep breath and meditate. Millions and millions of buds blossom into a beautiful flower. Why can't you blossom into a beautiful flower? You have all the means to blossom. All you need is to believe in yourself and let the spirit, let the consciousness within you expand. The side effect of expanding consciousness is that negativity starts to evaporate. It goes away like darkness when you turn on the light. And when the light is instilled within, all the ignorance that you have been carrying along all your life burns up, leading you to a blissful path, the path of love, of peace, and of silence. The greatest defense is to attack, but that attack should be of love, of peace, of silence. And then such an attack becomes the greatest defense you could ever have imagined in your life. Always remember, my fellows, the best defense is attack. Attack people with your peace. Attack people with your love. Attack people with your silence, with your joy. That's the best defense, and that is a great service to humanity too. Once you start following your heart, once you realize the significance of love, of silence, of joy, then you will not worry. Then you will not think about concepts and philosophies like the law of attractions. Then you will rather start focusing on the quality of attractions. And that is what I would love to see happening within you. that you all start moving from the mind towards your heart, that you stop becoming and start being yourself, that you drop the mask of personality and let your individuality take on. And then you all will be beautiful. Then you all will find the answers to your miseries. Then everything around you will be the same, but you will be no more the same. Then the flowering will start happening. Then the meditation will start blossoming. This is the way of its happening only if you are willing to turn inward and set on the most wonderful journey of your life, the journey within, the journey towards the self. Meditate, and whenever you feel low, whenever you feel upset, whenever you feel angry, remember Samasti, says the Buddha. Just remember your inner peace and go within again and again until you find peace. Just remember the last word of Buddha was Samasti, meaning remember. Remember your inner peace, and the more you would remember, the more you would start understanding the forgotten language, the language of silence. Buddha says, there is nothing to achieve and there is nothing to become. You are already that which you have been seeking in all your lives in different ways, on different paths. But you have never looked inward. Look inward. And whenever you have time, you know the path. Just go again and again to the inner peace, to the inner space, so that your fear of disappearing is dropped. You start enjoying being nobody, and you start remembering the forgotten language, the language of silence. Silence is the most beautiful language, but that silence has to be a blissful silence. Real communication happens in silence. But people don't get it. They want to talk, and I am against talking. I am against all those things that come in between you and your inner peace. And talking is the most idiotic thing that goes on and on and on. And nothing ever is found. You remain a lost man. Talking can make you rich from the outside, but the same talking is taking you away from yourself. From outside you are becoming richer, but from inside you are becoming poorer. The Master says, by talking and talking, externally you may be gaining something, but within you are certainly losing contact with yourself. You are getting closer to people while you are becoming further removed from yourself. And the more adept you become at this game, the harder it will be for you to go into silence. And so to all my dear followers and listeners, I appeal, let there be more silence within you, a blissful silence. Through silence, everything can be shared. Through silence, everything can be realized. The larger question is, how much are you ready to rejoice in silence? Your readiness to rejoice in silence states your spiritual progress. The greater the silence, the greater is the quality within. And the greater the quality, the greater is the attraction towards the higher altitudes. Love happens. Love cannot be planned. Love cannot be managed. It is not politics. Love simply happens. Love simply happens. And when you are progressing within, when you are growing inside out, then you start loving that which is of the higher realms. Then you love, but you love something that would help you to rise to the higher planes. Such a love is worth it. And so, no matter where you all go, no matter how many places on this planet you visit, no matter how many clubs and resorts you visit, finally, peace is only to be found when you start turning inward, when you start meditating, when you start self-realizing the immense significance of chanting the name of the Lord. Srila Prabhupada of ISKCON says, what cannot be achieved through the performance of Vedic rituals can be easily achieved through the chanting of the Lord's holy name. The more you come closer to yourself, the more you would start realizing how the attractions take place. The more you would start understanding that astrology is nothing but one medium to help you realize the importance of living life with consciousness. Then you will realize that astrology and karma are not separated but a small part of the vast ocean called spirituality. And so, let there be focus on helping each other to be more and more meditative. Because until the TV within you is switched on, you cannot come to the truth. You cannot understand the forgotten language, the language of silence. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Jai Sri Ganesha. Jai Guru.